Before we start this video, I just have to thank the publisher for a review code so that I could play this game. Really appreciate it. Awesome guys over there. Also, the like and subscribe button really miss you, so please give them a high five. It seems to start this way every time there's a new Souls-like or Metroidvania that I really want to get into. I say to myself, I'm going to put my time in and I'm going to get good at this. I'm going to do the work and just be obsessed with the game until I finally break through, and I'm cool, and I can beat and play Souls-likes. Well, usually, you have me get to the boss, and then I die. Then I do this about 10 or 15 more times, and I say, I'm not getting good, I'm just living Groundhog's Day, and I quit and walk away from it. But I will say this. Grime has been one of the first games that has not been like that at all. In fact, one of the best parts of the gameplay is, yes, it's difficult. Yes, there are some crazy bosses, and there's some insane enemies you have to fight, but it never takes away from you because you're losing. You know, like, I'm not a person who loves the idea of overdraft fees. It never made sense to me. Hey, you don't have any money, so we're taking money away from you that you don't have. Like, how do you come back from that, right? That's my whole thing with Souls. Like, hey, if you think it's hard now, wait till you suck. Then it's really going to be hard. How do you ever get good? But that's one of the main reasons why I actually really like Grime. And even though it's not a pure Souls-like, it's not a pure Metroidvania, it does borrow from both and I think creates a hybrid where when you do die, yes, you are punished by being sent back to your surrogate, which is essentially where you're respawned from. And think of it more like a checkpoint, but it's a checkpoint that also not only births you again, but also lets you grow and spend your experience points as well as acquire different traits and upgrade those. We'll get to that. But when you do die, you get to keep all the items that you found and you get to keep the experience that you have. And those are very important because, yeah, okay, you died, and that sucks. You have to make that long trek back to where you died. And the enemies, they also respawn as well, so you're going to have to go through the same enemies. Although, you got to keep that experience, so you can upgrade yourself, you can level up, you can make any of the weapons that you currently have stronger by leveling up or giving yourself more force, which is basically your stamina, which is incredibly important because this, in many ways, is like a Souls-like where your combat and special moves rely on that stamina. And once you don't have any stamina, you can't attack anymore and you can't dodge. So ultimately, yes, you have your health, you have your force or your stamina, and you also have like dexterity and strength. And these are more attuned to different weapon types and what's going to help you use that weapon better. But you also get to keep the equipment, which I thought is really kind of cool because you have different chest pieces and arm plates and things like that that you can equip to your character, as well as different weapons. So there is a lot of growth for your character to go through, and you don't lose any of it when you die. That, for me, is key. That's all I needed, and that's what really kept me going through this game. And the fact that I wished so many other games were like this, because it really does open up a lot more accessibility, and it allows a lot more people to be able to play it. Again, it's not without its punishment for dying, because while, yes, you do get to keep your items and your experience, you lose something called Ardor. Now, Ardor is sort of like a multiplier, or like a momentum thing, where the more people that you kill, this number gets higher and higher, and then you get more experience per kill. And so when you die, that drops to 0 and you're back at stage 1, although you can find a silhouette of yourself and reclaim that back. There is also another very important aspect of the gameplay, and that is absorb. It is a move that you use just how it sounds. You time it right when an enemy hits you and you absorb their attack, but you also absorb them as well. This can start something called a hunt, where if you absorb enough of one type of enemy, you'll actually take on a trait of theirs, or you'll be able to. But that's not the only thing that Absorb does. Aside from mitigating damage, which is always important, it also brings your Arden meter up, and it actually allows for you to heal more. There's a little bit of this like breath, this move that you can use to heal yourself, and really you fill it up by absorbing and killing enemies. And what it does is essentially sets off like a regen for you, and you can regain some of your health back. And there's many times where it really becomes key to use that, especially in boss fights or bigger battles, or just in a place where you have been fighting for quite a while. You haven't saved in a long time. You've already used one of your regens, and so you have to take some time just to absorb some enemies. And while this is tricky, I admit, the timing is different for every enemy, and some it's easier than others. But one thing I did really appreciate it is usable on every enemy. I'm a person who's been playing RPGs for as long as I can remember, and so often you get to a boss and like stop or silence or things like that won't work on them. But this, yeah, no, even though it's a very powerful move, and in some bosses it completely changes the tide of the fight, you can still use it. Now, you do have to sort of decide how you're going to use it. You have to decide when is the best time to, because there's also attacks that are like highlighted in red, and those you cannot absorb and you can't parry through, so you really have to stay away from. And, that's really the fun part of this game, is really getting into that tactic, that gameplay, and not worrying about losing everything if you die. Me personally, I really enjoyed my time with Grime. And I know there's a number of other reviewers who said that the performance is off, that the game sort of stutters or lags a little bit, and it might, but for me it never affected gameplay at all. In fact, I would say that that's part of the thing about this game, is it's a little bit slower. It's meticulous in a manner, and it's better, for at least for me, to play slower. It's not like Prince of Persia, where it's meant to be really fast, although, again, people have complained that the character movement is kind of slow. Again, I don't really have a problem with it. I think it, for me, goes at a good pace, but I can understand if there is a want or a need for a little bit better performance. Yeah, I'll give it to them. Like, fine. And then I've heard there's people who complain about the way it looks, visuals and whatnot. I don't know, for me, again, I think it fits really well. I think that this is one of those games where, yeah, maybe it's not the best looking game, but it still looks pretty good, and it seems to fit this like dark, and excuse me for using this, but grimy world, and it just facilitates more of that environment. And to further that is the soundtrack, which is amazing. It is just phenomenal. It really plays into the game. I would say like one of the best aspects is the fact that the music, the score behind it, it just makes everything feel so much more epic, or it makes it feel more open, if that makes sense, in certain times. And during certain bosses, it's epic, it's big, it's building it up. The composers did a fantastic job with that aspect of the game. So for me, I have to score this game an 8.5 out of 10. Could it use a few patches maybe to make performance a little bit better? Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem with that critique. I do think, though, that the way that it is now is still incredibly playable. Like, it's not like it needs a patch. But yeah, I think it could only make it better. But it's already a really good game, a really fun game. I think that they did a great job bringing it over to the Switch. And yes, it is not going to be as responsive or look as good as it does on the PS5. But look, the Switch is from 2017. Like, this is dated hardware. And it's not like the game is broken or anything. Like, I'll be the first to say that this might be one of my favorite Metroidvania Souls-like. And it's not just the accessibility, it's the environment, it's the story that the game is trying to tell, it's the history of this world that you're learning about as you're playing the game. It's also, honestly, the way it looks. For me, I like it. I do think it looks like dark and twisted and from another dark world, and I don't know, I enjoy that. I appreciate all of that. So for me, I really like this game. I'm kind of curious though, what is your thoughts on it? Have you heard about this game? Are you interested in picking it up? Have you already played it? Anything and everything in the comment section, much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.